Kathy, have you ever believed the lie that some might want to tell you that God is disappointed in you? Or maybe you just believe it yourself. God is disappointed in me. What about if this happened, I would be happy? If only this would happen, I would be happy. Or maybe if God loved me, my life would be easier. Or that wouldn't have happened. If God loved me, He wouldn't have let that happen. There are a lot of lies that we tell ourselves or we hear from other people. And so we're going to talk about that today. What are some lies that we tend to believe that we really shouldn't believe? So, welcome to Looking Up. This is a podcast for Christian women. We're glad you've joined us today. I'm Carla Moore. I live in Texas, and with me is Kathy Pollard, and she lives in Kentucky. And we just get together once a week and talk about things that we hope will help you and help us. Usually we pick things that we need to talk about because they help us, and we hope that you'll benefit from that as well. We are wrapping up. This is the last episode of season 7. So we've been at this for 3.5 years and we've enjoyed every second of it. And we are so thankful for those of you who listen in on a weekly basis, or even if you just listen every once in a while, we are thankful for you too. So welcome to Looking Up. So what all is going on in Kentucky's neck of the woods? I sound like Al Roker.
Let me just say that was a great introduction.
Thanks. I usually hate my introductions.
Well, and we've talked about that before, how that's the worst part of the episode is when it's about to hit record, we're like, "Oh, what am I gonna say?" But that was so great, so great. Yeah, today the sun is shining, and this is one of those starting to get excited about the garden kind of days because, well, first of all, Neil's out of town, and so I've been doing the farm chores that
Mm.
he usually does and stuff like that. And today I was out there taking care of all that stuff, and then I didn't mean to do any weeding, but as I walked past the raised garden beds, I happened to notice we have one that has, peanut plants in it, happened to notice some grass coming up in between there, and I thought, "I'll just work on this for a few minutes," and I didn't even have gloves on, but one thing led to another, and I just kept going, and I ended up at the one with the little tomato plants, and I actually found some ripe sunburst tomatoes.
Oh,
And they're little cherry tomatoes, but they're called sunburst, and they're this really pretty I should have brought them over here. Really pretty, kind of stripy orange, color, and they were kind of tucked under the foliage, so I never even saw them out there until I was right up there on them, and I was like, "What?"
it's a
And I
normal
have all
time.
this fresh basil coming up around my tomato plants, and, now it's getting exciting, so
Winter tomatoes usually ripe.
well, the bigger tomatoes won't be until much later in
Mm.
the summer, mid-July probably even. I also got a late start this year getting my stuff in, so I just wasn't expecting anything at all, and I was just so excited. I brought in, I think, 5 or 6. I took a picture of it and sent it to Neil. "Look what I found."
I loved your picture of apricot.
Aw, she loves me.
Well, she looked like she was trying to kiss you through the fence, so obviously she
She
does.
does, she's a kisser, yes, and she has a very rough tongue. You can kind of see the picture that I took that caught her tongue, you can see the texture of it, and it's really rough, and so if you move away where she can't kiss you, she reaches for your pants legs. She'll reach through there and grab a hold of your pants and start chewing on 'em.
Mm. She's affectionate, obviously.
Yeah, and, we had the fence guys, they came out Saturday, made really great progress, and then we had rain since then. So today is the first non-rainy day. I don't know if they're gonna be able to come out or not because now I have standing water in my yard from all the rain, but whenever that's all done, that's going to be amazing. It's gonna make apricot so much happier. It's gonna make our job of keeping the barn clean so much easier. The chickens are gonna be happier. I mean, I'm just so excited.
Well, will she be able to roam the whole property then?
No, we're not having the entire property
Yeah, that's
fenced
right, you
in.
talked about that. Yeah.
Yeah, we're having, the side lot and then a portion of the back. So she'll have 2 separate large pasture type places that we can move her back and forth between.
Exciting.
Very
Well, tell us
exciting.
everything you learned at the Homestead Festival.
Oh, man. I love going there so much. Sometimes when I see the schedule ahead of time, I think, I don't really know, that there's anything I need, but it's just so much fun to be there. And I always do learn. I learned so many things. I mean, I'm not going to go into it right now, but I learned so many things. There were times when Neil and I would just look at each other and go, "What?" Still finding out that we were doing things we didn't have to do or missing out things that we probably should be doing. But I will share this. Uh, who were we listening to? Patty Ward was talking about just gardening in general, and she was saying that at the very end of her talk, she said, "If you don't get anything from this entire lecture, here's the thing you need to remember. What do you think is the most essential thing about having a successful garden?" And I said, "Healthy soil." And a couple people said heirloom seeds, consistent watering, the things that she'd been
Mhm.
talking about. And she said, all good answers. And she said, but the number one ingredient to a successful garden is you.
Yeah, yeah.
And then she talked about how, most problems, we like to play the blame game, but most problems can be cut off if you actually put yourself out there in the garden every single day. Just keep an eye on things, catch things, check things. And first of all, I needed to hear that because I'm really good at blaming the weather.
Yeah.
We got too much rain, we got too much heat, we've had too many bugs, we've had too many, whatever. We didn't get a good batch of compost this year, whatever it is. But I thought that is so good and so easy to make application when it comes to our Christian walk.
Mhm.
How we could play the blame game and we could blame so many things and other people or circumstances or whatever it is, but the number one ingredient to a healthy Christian walk is you,
Yeah.
and being intentional, staying on top of things, checking in, just being aware, and I feel like with almost every lecture that we sat in on, I was like, I would look at Neil and go, "Ah, isn't it amazing how you could say the same thing about faith?"
Yeah. Well, it mimics life. I mean, gardening and
Yeah.
things you do in homesteading, it mimics life and faith and our relationship with God. So I'm sure that God intended it to be that way.
Yeah, I really do. I mean, Jesus used a lot of gardening examples and illustrations too. And well, I don't know why I didn't think about this. We found a lot of great things at the Homestead Festival
Mhm.
this year, beautiful baskets and some lotions and I mean, just all kinds of stuff. I should have brought it in here to do a little show and tell, but I forgot. Didn't even
Well,
think
it's
about it.
cool. I thought it was cool that you saw Temple Grandin too.
Yes, she's an amazing woman. She
How
really
old is
is.
she now? Do you know?
She's old. I don't
She's
know.
gotta be in her 80s.
Yeah, I don't know, but that
That
she
movie.
she got up there to speak, and she is full of vigor, she's kind of a no nonsense,
Mhm.
jump right in and start talking,
Yeah,
very convicted, very full of vigor, and Neil was just so fascinated, it was like sh he kept going, "She is such an interesting woman."
yeah. Well, anybody hasn't seen that movie, it's just called Temple Grandin. It's a really good movie. So, I think it's interesting to see how she came up with a different way of doing things with cattle that made them more healthy and more happy. So, it's an interesting movie. I don't remember all the details about it, but I remember being fascinated by it.
Yeah, she talked about that. She was talking about how people thought she was crazy, but she learns in pictures, and
Mhm,
she sees things in pictures, and so she was like, literally, physically getting down on their level and walking through the chute
mhm.
with them to see what they were seeing, and everybody was like, "What are you doing?" And she said, "I'm trying to see what the cows are seeing."
Nothing wrong with that.
Nope. Yeah, but we enjoyed it, we had a good time. We always stay at the same Best Western,
Mhm.
and, we really love it, and there's a restaurant attached to it that makes the best pizza ever. So
Usually hotel restaurants are bad.
yeah, we usually avoid them, but I forget why we were probably just really tired one year when we went. At the end of the day, we just said, "Let's just eat something here," and it's a really, really good restaurant. They have great bread, great salads, great pizzas. I mean, it's an Italian restaurant, but it's very, very good.
Well, good. Glad you had a good time. John and I went on Thursday? No, we left on Wednesday to go to my sister-in-law's father's funeral in Lubbock, which is
Mhm,
about 6.5 hours away, and, came back the next day. So it was a long, quick trip. I don't know if those 2 words go together, but it was long, but it was quick, and it was good. I mean, I was so glad that we went, and, I had forgotten until we were sitting down at the funeral waiting for the funeral to begin that Alice's daughter, Aubrey, and her husband, Brock, are members there. And Brock
mhm.
sat down next to John, and it just caught me off guard. It was so good to see him. Aubrey was sick and didn't get to come, but, um, just got to see Karen's family. I don't know all of them, but I know a number of them. And, funerals are hard, but they're also a time of celebration and joy and memories and the grandsons talked about him. Anyway, I was glad that we went. And then Thursday, right after we left the funeral, I love roses. I don't know. Yeah, we've eaten there together somewhere. I don't remember where it
Mhm.
was, but,
Wasn't I traveling with you?
yeah, we picked you up from the airport
Mhm,
somewhere. Maybe
mhm.
that was Round Table or something, but I
Yeah.
love their fajitas. So there was a Roses right down the road from the funeral home or from the church building, and then we were just gonna get on the road and go. And so we're walking into the restaurant and open the door, and there's this man standing there looking at us. It was Larry Hayes.
Oh,
And
wow,
yeah,
what?
yeah. Well, they live there now. So Larry and Nell
Oh, wow.
Hayes, they were members at Bear Valley, and they've moved
Mhm,
back to Lubbock. And, he saw us walking up, and he said something about there can only be unless John has an evil twin or something like that. But, he was there with his brother Barry, so Larry and Barry Hayes, and we had so much fun with them. Larry is a legend in
mm,
sports. He used to be the coach for Texas Tech baseball, and he's in the Texas Coaches Football no, Baseball Hall of Fame. And, he's 82, I think, and he's still coaching, and he's very, very successful coach. But he and Nell, they're very influential with those he's coaching women's softball with those young women. They invite them to worship, and they have them in their home, and they study the Bible with them, and he's very deadpan, but
mhm.
just hilarious. And his brother Barry is not deadpan. They're like the perfect foil for each other. And anyway, we just had the best lunch and just happened to see him and happened to be in the right place at
I
the right
love
time.
that.
We missed them, and Nell wasn't with them, but we got to sit and eat lunch with them, and then came home on Thursday night, and so we that's kind of what we did over the weekend. We didn't have anything to do Saturday, which was good. We needed a day to recover from the drive. But anyway, that
Yeah.
was the
How
main
cool is
news of the week.
that? Yeah. I don't know that I've ever met his brother. I can't picture him, so I
Well,
don't think
they
I
look
have.
alike, but he's quite a bit younger. He's like 13 years younger, but he lives in Dora, New Mexico, and that's where Ken and Shelley Doughty used to be. So they know Ken and Shelley really well, and you could tell that they used to have a lot of fun together.
Hmm.
So, and anyway, that may be like a private conversation you and I need to have. Not everyone else, they don't care. But um, I was going to tell you something at the risk of you and everyone else listening may never come to my house again.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I can already feel my scalp tingling. What was it?
It was a scorpion
Where was it?
in the shower with me. Yeah. So we haven't seen, I mean, it's been a long, 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 long time since we've had a live
Mm-mm.
scorpion.
Mm-mm.
You're so funny to me because you'll crawl down in a hole in the middle of Israel and there's spiders everywhere, and that doesn't bother you, but a scorpion, you're done.
They're
But
just so evil looking.
yeah, they are,
That big
but
thing.
it was little, but what was really creepy about it was I don't know where it came from because it was just in the middle of my shower and I felt something on my foot.
Oh, no. No. Mm-mm. Okay.
And
Oh.
when your foot kinda comes across something and you're like, "That doesn't feel like it should be here at this moment."
Oh.
Yeah, now I did have my glasses on, so I wasn't sure what it was, so I used a little shower spray to just push it away from me.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
And So when I sure enough, when and I suspected that might be what it was. It didn't sting me, but it was small, so I just wasn't sure. And sure enough, so when I got out and put my glasses on, and there he was, and he was alive. So,
That's the stuff nightmares are made of right there. Whew,
I mean, it's not
whew.
they hurt less than I would say it hurts less than a yellow jacket, especially when they're small. But like you said, they're just so stinking creepy looking and
Mhm,
evil, and there's no
mhm.
reason. I mean, what reason on earth is
Here
there for
we
them
go.
to exist? There's just no reason. It's part of Satan's plan,
Yeah,
and there will be no scorpions in heaven. So,
yeah. That's how I feel about cockroaches.
mhm,
Just mm-mm.
yeah. So anyway, I'm gonna do some memory erasing so you won't remember that I said that, and you'll come to
You're
my
gonna well, now I have the willies. Thank you for that.
you don't have scorpions, so you don't have to worry about it.
Oh,
And
oh,
so
man.
that night, I wore my shoes back and forth to the bathroom thinking, "Hmm," but John sprays, and if we ever do see one, he sprays with roach spray. There's this Bengal and if any of you out there have trouble with scorpions, it's a red can, and it's called Bengal roach spray, and that stuff, you just spray the baseboards, and we don't do it when the kids are gonna be coming anytime soon, but, it we find them maybe I found maybe 1 a year for the last 10 years, dead, dead, like, it'll be stretched out dead. So this live one was a surprise to me. So John sprayed, obviously, that was one of his immediate duties was to spray. It was
I mean, thanks for the visual of the dead scorpion spread out. I'm picturing all this stuff
yeah,
and
well, the little
woo,
tail is all straight, so it's not curled up like it normally is. It's like
ugh.
dead. I
Mhm.
also wanted to show you a T-shirt that I found that I think I'm gonna have to order. Do you know what Leviticus 3:16 says?
Of course I do, but I'll let you tell me.
If you can't can you see it? I can't see my screen.
Hang on. I put my glasses on. Oh, yeah. All the fat is the Lord's.
I'm gonna have to get that T-shirt. It came across my news feed somewhere, and it was a little baby onesie that said all the fat and I thought that was so cute for a little baby that's fat. And I thought, "Surely they make those for adults, and I might need to get one of those because all the fat is the Lord, so I should be honored by all this fat."
Ah, that's cute.
Yeah,
That's good.
okay, well, I'm done. What else you got?
Let me see. When did we talk? Well, oh, Thursday night, Neil had a meeting at the church building and Apricot got out.
Great.
Yeah, we
On the
really
highway or
haven't
what?
what?
On the road or where?
No, no. And we really haven't had any problems with her getting out because now we have those like heavy duty cattle panels everywhere. And the only time she ever escaped was when we decided to put up electric wire for the first time and we let her out for the first time. She kind of went crazy and
Freedom.
she backed into the wire, which zapped her. And so then she took off running and she literally plowed through the electric fence that we just put up, just
Wow.
plowed through and kept going. So that was our, that was the only time we've ever had trouble with that. And so Chelsea called me and she was like, "Am I crazy or is Apricot out?" And I went, "What?" And sure enough, she's over here right up against near the she shed. We have this little maple tree and she's right under it trying to reach the leaves. And I was like, "Oh no." I mean, she doesn't, I don't, there's no halter on her. And like, there's
Yeah.
nothing. And I thought, of course, Neil is not here. And I went out there and it was the easiest thing. I mean, she gave me no trouble whatsoever. She just followed me out to the barn. I kind of acted like I wasn't paying attention to her. So I wouldn't scare her off. And, when we got to the barn, she kinda went around it, and I put some feed in her little bowl, her bin or whatever, and, went out there and just she just followed me right in. I mean, it was not an issue at all.
Yeah. As long as you
Unlike
acted
Peaches.
nonchalant.
Yeah, unlike Peaches, who every time she got out was a major ordeal.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, anyway, I was, like, texting Neil, "Apricot got out." He was like, "What?" I
But you
said,
handled it. I'm
"She's
so
already
proud.
back in the barn."
How'd she get out?
Oh, she somehow busted we have the cattle panels bolted to the barn entrance,
Mhm.
somehow busted that off, and not only that, managed to slide that whole cattle panel side, it's like 3 of them attached together, slid that whole thing down, the length of a full cattle panel. In fact, I thought she knocked one down and drug it off,
Wow.
but she just slid that entire thing down. And so, anyway, when Neil got back from the I just locked her in the barn. I closed the gate to the barn and left her in there, and I was like, "She's in the barn, you're gonna have to fix this when you get home."
It makes me think of The Secret Life of Pets. Have you ever seen that movie? Your
No.
grandkids would like it, but the things that go on behind when we look the other way, and
Yeah.
I'm picturing Apricot sliding that panel down.
Well, she does things Peaches never did, and she chews things up like a puppy. And so, I can't tell you how many her garden hoses we've gone through because we think we've got it far enough we keep one out there to fill her waterer. And then if you don't pull it way away from the barn, she somehow gets a hold of it and she will chew that thing up. And she has figured out how to even slide it under the barn and chew it up. You can't leave anything
Yeah,
like, a temperature adjuster in the waterer. She will chew it up.
like a puppy.
Yeah.
Well, it would be fun to kinda have a camera on her and just see what she's got going on in the barn when you're not watching.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, she's fun. I've been listening to a lot of information about social media in general, and I'm particularly interested in checking out the documentary, The Social Dilemma. Listeners, if you want, between now and the next time we come back, um, I think it's worthy of some conversation, and we definitely don't have anything figured out, but I think it's good to be in the know about some things that you might not be in the know about, just to have more wisdom and usage and kind of eyes open in usage and things like that. So,
Yeah, yeah, it is daunting is a word, and it's a little scary, a lot scary,
yes. Yes.
but
Yeah,
we wanna be wise about it, so, okay.
definitely.
So
Yeah.
stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah. What else
Yeah.
you got? Anything?
Let me see. I don't think so,
While you're
but
looking, I'm gonna tell you something shocking. I
uh-oh.
can handle something else shocking today.
Okay.
So, several weeks ago, probably 3 weeks ago, I don't remember I was asking about sandals for bad knees because my knees hurt.
Yeah.
I have arthritis in my knees, and Barbara Highnote commented, and I could not find the comment, so I don't know if she deleted it or what, but she said, "If you drink sodas, try not drinking them and see how much better your knees feel." So I have not had a Diet Dr. Pepper in 2.5 weeks, and my knees are significantly better.
You're kidding.
Mm-mm. And, of course, I've always heard that those diet drinks are bad for you. But, sometimes you just have to be ready, or I don't know. Sometimes you
Yeah.
just are ready and sometimes you're not. And so that
Good
day that
for
I read that, I was
you.
like, I'm just going to see. I'm just going to see. And, and it's significant. Like the next day, I felt a difference.
Wow.
Yeah. And I still have arthritis pain. I mean, that's not going to go away because I have
Yeah.
arthritis in my knees. But before, it felt like they were swollen. Like I couldn't, like it felt like almost like I couldn't straighten my legs out completely. And so I almost felt like that whatever muscle that is at the top of my thigh was always strained, like trying to hold me up.
Hmm.
And now I almost, in a way, feel like my knees are what's the opposite, not bent this way, but almost that way because that
Mhm.
inflammation is gone.
Wow.
So I haven't really missed it. Um, I miss variety. I drank water anyway before, but I'm obviously drinking more now. And I'll have some decaf tea, or I might put some Propel in my water bottle or something like that. Which I know there's still chemicals and all, but just trying to make better decisions along the way. So my knees feel better.
Look at you. I'm so impressed with you. That's
Mhm.
awesome.
So
That's
it's
amazing.
It's cheaper too. It's not as water's a lot cheaper than Diet Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
I think it helped for me to hear a not just you'll feel better, but a specific, see
Mhm.
how your knees will feel. And I was getting to the point where, like, our
You were
trips,
ready to
it
try
worried
it.
me about our trips that I would be able to keep up on those days of long walks. And now I feel like, that won't be so much of a problem. So
Speaking of our trips, did you bring up the new thing for the October trip last time?
the new thing, no, I don't think I have. We
Mhm.
haven't talked about
It's
that.
pretty exciting.
With everything going on, we're still planning on October, the trip, which is originally was Israel and Jordan, and the Jordan was before Israel, so you could, if you didn't wanna do Jordan, you could come a little bit 2 or 3 days later and do Israel. But we've added an Egypt extension, which is like your dream trip.
Yes.
Yeah. So after the Israel portion, then, there will be a Egypt excursion, which will include a flight from Tel Aviv to Cairo, which is not very, it's like an hour and a half flight, I think, maybe a little bit longer.
Mhm.
And then I believe, what is it, 5 nights? I can't remember. 5
Something like that, yeah.
5 nights, 4 days, and then you leave on the morning, the 5th morning, whatever. But we're working on getting that part posted to the website. So we're still planning on it, if they can get their act together over there in the Middle East, which will never be completely figured out until the Lord returns, but we'll see. Yeah.
Man, when you guys sent that text and you were like, "What do you think?" I was like, Egypt
Yeah.
has been at the top of my bucket list forever.
Yeah, I
Like,
told John.
since it was Israel, and then we went there, and so what got bumped up into that place was Egypt,
Yeah,
and
yeah. I told John
I
you'd be
really hope
jumping
we
up
can
and
go.
down. I knew y'all be excited. And Thomas and Mary Mingers, they went with us back in October, or maybe it was last spring, but they had asked us specifically if we might want to go with them afterwards, and so then we just started talking about, they said they would be excited if other people wanted to go too, so it wasn't really originally on the schedule, but,
Mhm.
you know, you wanna go with good people, and why not? We're already in that part of the world,
Yay!
so let's do it.
Yeah, awesome,
Yeah.
awesome.
Okay.
So, our break is gonna be for the next couple of weeks, and, in between now and then, we have our Bible camp is starting on Sunday. So, we're gearing up for that, and I'm gonna be helping in the kitchen and teaching the teen girls during camp. Always enjoy both of those things, and Jennifer Harrison's gonna be teaching with me, so that's fun
That'll be fun.
in there. Yeah, I was trying to think. It'll be a while before it'll feel like it's been forever when we record again, and I know a lot of stuff will have happened, but I was trying to think, like, big things. I think camp, not really sure what else is going on between now and the next time we record.
Yeah. Well, our 40th anniversary is Sunday.
Oh,
When this comes out
congratulations.
Monday, it'll be the day after, yeah, so 40, I just it blows my mind, just blows
Wow.
my mind, and I
Mhm.
we so this'll, if anybody didn't already know this about us, my 40th high school reunion was this past weekend, and I didn't go, but, I
Wow.
enjoyed looking at pictures and thinking, I just remember going with my mom to Fort Worth for her 25th high school reunion, and at the time thinking, "Wow, she's
Yeah.
old." And now here I am with my 40th high school reunion and, looking at pictures, I'm thinking, well, we're
Mm.
we're getting on up there.
Yeah, 40 years. Congratulations. Ours, we just had our anniversary and it was 34 for
Mhm.
us.
Yeah, this is a big one.
Yeah,
We're
how
gonna
exciting.
try to do a little getaway and enjoy a few days by ourselves, so
Mhm.
that'll be
Very
something
cool.
we do on the break.
Mhm.
Forward
Yep.
to. Good. Are you ready to start?
Yep.
We've only been chit-chatting for 30 minutes.
Maybe we should start.
I know we should start. Okay, so we're gonna talk about lies that we believe, or that we shouldn't believe and we tend to believe, or we maybe listen, pay more attention to them than we should. And I don't know, sometimes it just feels like we listen to them all the time. They say this or that. And why are we listening to them? Like, we tend to listen to uh, a voice in our head, really. Maybe it's
Mhm.
left over from our childhood or from influences that we had as we grew up that just really were not good for us. But anyway, we're going to talk about, depending on time, 3 or 4 lies that I think they resonated with me and maybe with you as well. But the first one is that I'm too old to matter. Ironically, after saying this was our 40th anniversary, I'm 58 and you're younger than me. You're several years younger than me, but still in your 50s. And you mentioned this, I think on the last podcast, you said something about, we both think about relevance. And there's something about the older you get, you start kind of thinking about, am I even relevant anymore? Do I have anything to offer? Why would anybody listen to me? Once you start getting a little older, it's just, you start feeling a little invisible. And this is one of those things that when Mike Vestal teaches that, what class is it that he would teach? And he would invite us to come down and talk to his class. I want to say preacher in his work or something
I
like
was
that.
thinking
Maybe he
that
taught
too,
that
yeah.
after Neil left.
Mhm.
And he will give, he's usually got a class full of young men who are in preacher training school, and usually some women too. But he'll invite whoever's there, Shana Kay, you, me, Lynn, Terry, older women, and ask us, what would you like for these young men to know, among other questions. And one of the things that I always tell them is to pay attention to the older women in the pews. A lot of them might be widows that are older than you and I.
Mhm.
When you think about the wealth of experience that they have and the wisdom, the things that they've seen over the years. And because when I think about the women that sit in our pews and the things that they've seen and done and experienced and how it's taught them things, and they're just like this encyclopedia sitting over there. And yet they tend to feel invisible. And I think some of these younger men can be, I don't know what it is, but I think maybe it's because other people are more demanding of your attention. And these older women are just quieter.
Mhm.
And so you can tend to feel a little bit invisible. And so I'm too old to matter. I'm too old to start something new. That was kind of along the same lines. And we laugh about that. I'm an old dog and I can't learn any new tricks. And I can fall into that feeling sometimes. But when you think about how many people in scripture that God used in the later seasons of their lives, it's pretty incredible to think that, and it's pretty wrong of us to think that we can't be relevant and useful and wise and helpful in our older years. So I was trying to look up and see who just who in the world was someone that got started later. And Julia Child was one of them. She published her first cookbook at 50. And Ray Kroc, who was the founder of McDonald's, he started that business at 52. So, I mean, they
Hmm.
had some pretty significant impact on the world at an older age. But there's Abraham and Sarah and Moses and Jacob and also think of Simeon and Anna who wanted to see the birth of Jesus. And Anna, when I looked, she must have been, I would imagine she was over 100 years old when they brought Jesus to the temple. And so I also thought about Wayne and Wheezy. I mean, we've talked about Wayne and Wheezy Burger
Mhm.
many times on this podcast, but at 80 years old, Wayne picked up their house and moved to Littleton, New Hampshire. It's quite a trek across the country to start a new congregation.
Mhm.
And you don't do something like that at 80 years old without having a little bit of trust in God, a lot of trust in
Mhm.
God and
Mhm.
confidence that He can still use you and still work through you. And He does. God works mightily through Wayne and Wheezy. There's people here, I think, of Clinton Rutherford is 90 years old and one of my favorite men in this congregation. You remember how the tradition was when someone would walk with the groom during the practice of their wedding ceremony. So he married later in life, and it was probably close to 40 years ago because I was a newlywed and I was his wife, his pretend wife. So we've always joked about that. But he's 90 and he's still out on his tractor every day. He's still working. He's starting to hurt himself a little bit more, but he doesn't let his age keep him from doing things. So just thought we would talk a little bit about, how do you feel about that? Do you ever feel like you're too old to be relevant anymore?
I'm not quite there yet, but but I think things surprise me, in situations where, if you're used to people coming to you to ask you a question or ask you for advice, and then it's like all of a sudden you start realizing, huh, they're much more interested in going to this other person, and it could be because she's 20 years younger than I am. Still old enough to have experience and wisdom, but not as old as I am, and those kinds of things are starting to happen where you kinda go, "Huh." But when you were talking about all those individuals, I thought about Johnson Kell,
Yeah.
and, just a dear, dear sterling character, true gentleman. We absolutely loved him. He was at Bear Valley, and he was in his 80s when he started teaching our boys how to play tennis. He
Oh,
gave them tennis lessons twice a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2.5 hours, 2.5-hour long lessons every single week.
wow.
Yeah, yeah, and he was just, when you think about relevance and influence, um, if we saw him get up and start walking up to the pulpit because he was the one leading the prayer, it was almost like he went because his prayers just went straight to your heart. I mean, they were just so humble and heartfelt, and his prayers would bring a tear to your eye, and he wasn't trying to do that.
Yeah.
It's just the kind of person that he was. When I think about people that are older, we've talked about, Roger and Joyce Johnson on here many, many times, and I don't wanna jump ahead of you, but I never think about their age,
Yeah.
ever,
Mhm.
and I just think, "I love these people, I wanna be around them, they're such good friends," and I know it's because they just don't focus on that, they just focus on people, loving people and seeing people, and I think when you do that, you always keep your relevance, but I'm probably jumping ahead of you.
No, and when you said that though, I thought to myself, maybe that's one of the keys is that we, as we grow older, don't worry about how old you are. I think
Mhm,
that we're the ones that are focused on how old I am and looking
mhm.
around at people that are younger than us, and maybe we're the ones that are so, distracted by that and other people are not. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure that's not true all the time, but I think you're right because, like, Wayne and Weezy, they didn't worry about, "Oh, I'm 80, I can't do that." And Johnson didn't say, "I'm in my 80s, I'm supposed to be rocking in a rocker, not teaching tennis lessons." So I think we limit ourselves, and so that's something to think about. There's lots and lots of passages about wisdom and age being connected, and Job 12:12 says, "Wisdom is with aged men, and with long life is understanding." So, you're talking about people who lead prayers after a lifetime of learning to know God and
Yeah,
becoming closer and closer to God. I love listening to prayers
yeah,
from people who know the Lord intimately through years and years of that relationship. Job 32:7 says, age should speak, and multitude of years should teach wisdom. So, I mean, that gives us kind of something that we should be doing. Proverbs 16:31, the silver-haired head is a crown of glory if it is found in the way of righteousness. So there's an if there, and I'm seeing more and more silver come into my head. But if it's found in the way of righteousness, it's a crown of glory. Leviticus 19:2, you shall stand up before the gray head and honor the face of an old man, and you shall fear your God. I am the Lord. Proverbs 23:22 says, listen to your father who gave you life, and do not despise your mother when she is old. And then Deuteronomy 5:16. When you think about who this was written to, we hear it all the time, honor your father and your mother. But this was spoken to the people coming out of the wilderness, and they were grown. So Moses, God, was speaking to these grown people about honoring their father and mother. So you and I, people our age, are to honor our father and mother as the Lord your God has commanded you, that your days may be prolonged, that it may go well with you.
and
So,
weren't their fathers and mothers the reason they had wandered in the wilderness for 40 years in the first place?
and they're still being told to honor them. Yeah, that's right. That's true. And then think about the example of Rehoboam when he asked the older people for advice and the younger people for advice about whether or not he should do this. And he ignored the older people's advice and took the younger advice and failed. And it was a bad thing because, we just really should listen to the wisdom of the older people. So, why is it that we tend to believe that we're not as relevant when we're older? And I was thinking to myself, why do I think that sometimes? And I think part of it's because we're tired. We just get tired. And I'm not even that old, but laughing about keeping grandkids sometimes and how much more physically tiring it is when I used to, when I have one or two now, and I used to have three all the time. What's up with that? Because my body is tired. And it's easier to give in to that tiredness and to rest. And sometimes we do need to rest. I'm not saying that if you're 85 years old that you may or may not be able to teach tennis lessons. And if you can't, that's okay. So it's kind of an unusual thing. It takes brain power to learn new things, and that can be daunting. It really can. Brian sometimes will say, "How would y'all feel about learning a new app?" And usually John and I are both going, don't really want to take the brain power to learn a new app and learn how something is done in a new way. And we shouldn't be that way. Sometimes you just feel like you have a certain limited amount of space in your brain and it's full, and I can't add something else in there. So that's another reason I think it's physically more challenging. I think sometimes it really is because younger people tune out older people. And that's an unfortunate, I know it happens. I've seen it. And for whatever reason, maybe they weren't taught to honor the older people. They tune out older people. But at the same time, older people can tend to disdain younger people. And we have an episode, we talked about this. Can't
Mhm,
remember what it was called, something about the generation gap.
mhm,
And and it's true that sometimes the older we get, the grumpier we get, and so we don't make it easy for younger people to come to us and ask for our wisdom and our advice, and maybe we're like, "I've got all the wisdom here, come ask me." And nobody really wants to go and ask somebody that's grouchy, and, um, it's I think we have to just be more welcoming, more, approachable,
mhm.
and more willing to listen to younger people too. And I was thinking that younger listeners, so if you're a younger listener, what should you do? I think it would be great if you could honor the older people, if you could befriend, go out of your way and make a friend of an older woman or an older man sitting in the pew or that you work with. Make a friend out of them, show interest in them, and acknowledge to yourself too. I think this is an important thing to do, that maybe older people do things the way they do them because they learned that it was wise to do it that way. So find out why. Why do they do it this way? And then at the same time, I think older people can acknowledge that younger people have some new ways of doing things that are not bad, and take the time to show interest and ask why. So, you know, there's reasons why we tend to feel a little irrelevant, but I think there's some solutions to making us not feel that way. So what do you think?
Yeah, I think that you're only gonna talk to people for advice and insight if you have a relationship with them, typically, because if I just want information, and especially, with younger people growing up in the digital age, they'll just look it up on their phone.
Yeah.
They don't really need another human being these days to give them information. But especially in the Christian family, if you wanna be inspired and wanna learn from somebody and seek their advice, there's a heart problem that you're not gonna look up on your phone. You're not gonna talk to somebody you don't have a relationship with.
Right.
And so, for those of us who are older, if you only hang around or are interested in people your own age and you don't go to the trouble to reach out and be engaged with and be interested in, all those young couples and those young moms and those young families and college kids and all, then, you want them to honor you and respect you and seek out your knowledge and wisdom. But if you've shown no interest in them, if you've been just as good at ignoring them as you feel like they are you,
Well,
then why would they?
right.
Why would they seek you out? You know, I
Wait, sweet.
to bring up Roger and Joyce again, you know, I'm learning from them all the time, but I don't think I've gone up to them and said, "Can I ask you a question?" You know, but they're just so engaged with everybody, and I can see they're having fun together as a couple.
Yeah,
They still love each other. They still flirt with each other. They still, you know, they have spats, but they know how to do conflict. You know, I'm constantly learning from them because they're involved in my life. And I just think that's key, you know, and I also on this subject think we're not doing anybody any favors if we're constantly grumbling about the woes of getting older,
yeah,
you know, and which is very natural to do because I think it catches all of us by surprise. Why is this so hard?
yeah,
Why is everything changing? But, you know, think about the people you know that are older than you know, maybe even by a couple of decades, and how many of them complain and grumble and talk about their woes versus the ones that still have a sparkle in their eyes, still find things to rejoice about, still have pleasant conversation. You know, you're drawn to that personality because it's like when you're making visits, you know, and I'm not saying that people don't have hardships and they shouldn't talk about it. I'm not saying that. But there's a couple of different personality types. They're the ones that are only focused on how horrible everything is. And then there are the ones that even though they're not in an ideal situation anymore, they still seem to talk about how blessed they are, you know? And as a younger person, which one are you gonna be drawn to? Which one are you gonna wanna learn from? You know, I don't think we're doing anybody any favors if we're always grumbling about how hard it is to get older.
exactly.
We need to be showing them it is a joy and a blessing to be alive and to let God use us and to know you and be engaged. And, you know, I think that Satan would like nothing more than to say, well, now you're old, your life is over. Hope you had a good time.
Yeah, yeah.
But I think sometimes we give that impression.
Mhm. Well, and other than honestly, other than physical things that start wearing out, what's that joke that says, "Enjoy your 20s and 30s because in your 40s and 50s, your check engine light comes on." So other than those, I mean, I think it's been great. I love growing older with John. I love the memories that we share. I love memories, that we share. So you grow in joy. You don't have to grow in grumpiness. You don't have to grow in, ailments, but grow in your joy, and you're right, when we are engaging and have a relationship with people, I think they're drawn to us anyway. And, the fact of the matter is anyway that even if no person thought we were relevant anymore, we matter the world to God, and we've
Mhm.
gotta find our identity and our worth in Him and know that He loves us no matter the age, and in fact, the closer we grow to being face to face with Him, I think the more beloved we are to Him, and so find our worth and our relevance in the Lord, and I think when we do that, we exude something that will draw others to us anyway and help us to be relevant to other people as well, so that's one of the lies I think we believe is that we're too old to be relevant anymore. The next lie that we tend to believe is that a strong Christian woman never struggles or never doubts. And, that's an easy one for us to tell ourselves or to hear someone say. You listen to these self-help podcasts and recordings and things, and you might feel chastised sometimes that why are you struggling? I hear people all the time, and I hear people all the time say, "Don't tell me to pray more. Don't tell me to trust more. Um, I need other help." And I'm not saying I don't want to go down that path too much. I'm not saying that everyone is saying that if you would pray more, then you wouldn't struggle or doubt. Because I'm here to tell you, I consider myself a pretty strong Christian woman, but I struggle with some doubts sometimes, and I struggle with temptation sometimes. And I was trying to write down some of the things that we might struggle with and doubt. I think we struggle with temptation. One of the big ones I think is fear. We struggle with being fearful about the unknown or about our grown children or about, there's all kinds of things that we can fear. We struggle with anxiety. Um, and sometimes we struggle with overthinking. Do we ever struggle with wondering if God sees me, hears me, loves me? Do we struggle with what we believe? Do I believe am I right with God? Have I been taught the right things? Am I teaching the right things myself? Have I come to the right conclusions? I mean, those things are are concerns that we have. When someone asks us a question that we can't answer, and it might kind of jerk the rug out from under us, and that's just something that we struggle with. Maybe it is what's happening to me or my family. Is this my fault? That's something I think we can struggle with. We might wonder if we're truly forgiven. Are my friends really my friends? I don't know how I'm going to make it through this season of life and not lose my mind. That is something that I have, and probably in each season of my life, I have thought that because each decade, each season brings new challenges, and you wonder, am I going to make it through this or am I going to go nuts? Yeah, we struggle. The older we grow, when we get near the end of our life, I've seen it. There are all new struggles and difficulties and doubts that we're going to encounter. So, just to say that a strong Christian woman never struggles or doubts is a faulty and a wrong saying, right?
Right, right. And I find, again, I never know what you've already decided to cover, and I don't wanna jump ahead of you, but I find it very comforting when we see God's faithful in the Bible with their struggles and their questions, and, even the ones that were walking with Jesus,
Right.
spending time with him day after day. I mean, one-on-one interaction with the Son of God, and they still struggled, and Jesus still had to question them about their doubt or their, you know, fear or whatever it was, and they were his, inner circle, if
Yeah.
you will, and they still struggled. And we can see in that Faith Hall of Fame, those individuals that are lauded for their faith and their obedience, even though they couldn't see the realized promises, walk through that list
Yeah.
and you can, almost to a person say, well, but we also read about that time that they
Mhm.
struggled in one way or another. And it's just so encouraging to see that, God knows that we're human and we're going to struggle, and He's given us the word to help us in all of those ways. And I feel like the struggle with the struggle is we can be harder on ourselves than we are others.
Yeah.
Because we can see, and I'm talking about other Christians, because
Mhm.
you're talking about people that, others might look up to as a strong Christian individual. We see people that we consider strong Christian individuals, and when they struggle with something, we just encourage them, and we're proud of them for trying to work through it or asking for prayers or whatever it might be. It just makes us admire them anymore, even more for their humility. But maybe when we keep struggling with the same old thing, we keep praying about the same old thing, that we think we've conquered, and then it creeps right back up again. It's like, what is wrong with me?
Mm. Playing the comparison game a lot of
Mm.
times.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think too, what in the world are we not we're forgetting all of these Bible characters that went through so many struggles. Job wanted to die, and understandably. Elijah was running from Jezebel, and he was the one that basically said, "I'm the only one left that's serving the Lord." So we feel like we're the only ones, maybe, or Elijah certainly did. Think about David and all of the psalms that he wrote, and he had struggles. He had his struggles. Psalm 13 is one of those lament songs, and he says, "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long shall I take counsel in my soul, having sorrow in my heart all the day? How long will my enemy be exalted over me?" he was struggling and he was doubting God, but God can handle that.
Yeah, I
Like
don't
you
know if it was in that one or another one, but in one of the Psalms, David said, "No one cares for my soul."
mhm. It's a little sounds a little self-pitying, but
Mhm,
he went through some pretty tough stuff. He was yeah, after writing through the first part of his life, I have even more sympathy for him. You're just talking about the disciples, his inner circle, and how they witnessed. I think about the very day that they witnessed him feeding the 5,000 plus, and then they got in the boat and were terrified when Jesus calmed the water, like, "You just saw him perform this miracle, and why are you terrified about this miracle?" It just doesn't make so much sense to me, and yet I'm the same way. I think about, Moses, and there's one point where he said to the Lord, "Why have you been so hard on your servant? And why have I not found favor in your sight that you've laid the burden of all this people on me? Was it I who conceived all this people? Was it I who brought them forth? Where am I to get meat to give all these people? For they weep before me, saying, 'Give us meat. I alone am not able to carry all this people because it's too burdensome. If you're going to deal thus with me, please kill me at once.'" And I mean, it's kind of dramatic. It is very dramatic, but
mhm,
he struggled and he doubted. And he was, the Bible says that he was a man full of faith. So I think we can be the same way. Think
mm,
about Paul's thorn in the flesh in 2 Corinthians 12. And we don't know what it was, but Paul had a thorn in the flesh that he prayed and prayed and prayed for God to remove from him. So Paul struggled. He struggled himself. The Father, I love, this is one of my favorite passages because I can relate to it so much. The father of the little boy that was possessed. And he asked, the disciples couldn't cast out the demon or the spirit. And so the father asked Jesus, "If you can do anything." Jesus said, "If I can." And you should believe. He said, "You should believe." And the father says, "I believe, help my unbelief." And
mhm,
I probably think that on a weekly basis, just to be perfectly honest. I believe, but help my unbelief. When I have doubts, I don't doubt in the sovereignty of God or that God is real, but I have doubts about different things, but I ask God and he will help me. He will help me with that unbelief. Even Jesus struggled. He
mm,
grieved in the garden. So, how do we help this this issue of believing the lie that a strong Christian woman never doubts or struggles? I think we have to remember that God wants us to cast our care on him. 1 Peter 5:7, casting or throwing. I think I looked up that word is only used 2 times in this passage, and then where they throw the blanket over the donkey as Jesus is about to walk into Jerusalem. So it's literally throwing your care, tossing your care over to God because he cares for you, and knowing that even when we struggle and doubt that God cares for us when we can give our cares to him. Matthew 8:11, 28-30. "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, I'll give you rest." And when I think about the answer that's found in that passage, he says, "Come to me, learn from me, and I will give you rest." So we have our answer to when we struggle and doubt. But I also think about all of those characters that we just brought up and how Job, he wanted to die, but what he had to do was to trust in God and wait, and he did. And Elijah, what Elijah had to do, he had to rest and he had to eat something and he had to trust that God would handle it. And I think we're all willing to rest and eat to help solve our problems. And I think about the psalmist and David, oftentimes he had to vomit out, sorry for that visual, but he had to vomit out those feelings that he had of doubt. And even there's passages of Psalms where he's asking God to break the teeth of his enemies. It's like he had to just get that out of his system. So sometimes we need to get that out of our system and talk to God and confess that we're doubting and struggling and ask for his help. What did Gideon have to do when he was faced with his struggles? He had to trust and obey God. Moses had to follow God, had to accept his responsibility. So there's things that we can do when we're struggling and doubting. Paul's answer, Paul just had to deal with it, and he did. And then the father of that young boy, he confessed his doubt and he asked for help, and we can do that as well. To me, that's what it is. We confess that we're having struggles and doubts to God, and ask him for his help, and he will. So, yes, strong Christian women have struggles and doubts, and we need to ask for help and admit that we do.
Yeah, and keep talking to God through the struggles and all those examples, that's what they did. And, I think it's, helpful to read through the Psalms. You shared some of them as examples, but some of them, it is poetry, but still, they're very strong feelings and expressed to God. And sometimes when I'm reading them, I think, I don't
Yeah.
think I would say that to God.
Mhm.
But it's an example for us, and like you say, we can purge all of those feelings and we
That's
can
such a nicer word.
we can keep talking to God through it all. And one other thing I would point out is that you may be going through a season of struggle, not just an event, but a season of struggle. And, if it's this long term, whatever it is, you're still praying, you're still praying, you're still praying, but you're still struggling. Hang in there. Don't ever quit talking to God through it. Or maybe you're going through a struggle. You maintained a close relationship with God. It kind of resolved itself and you moved on, but something else happened. Think about Moses, the example that you gave. It wasn't just a one time thing
Right.
where he struggled and he was like, "Hey, what's going on?" And he had these conversations with God. That would get resolved, and then he'd find himself in another situation that would cause him to struggle and question and, even be angry at times. And he would talk to God about it. That would get resolved, and then something else would happen. And he was a humble man who walked with God as friend does with a friend, who talked with God as a friend does with a friend. But he struggled more than once. So I think that's something we need to understand too is, you know, this is the life that we live in and we're human and having struggles doesn't mean giving into them and sinning through them and giving up on God. It just means that there are things that are going to hurt us. There are things that are going to cause us to have questions. There are going to be unexpected things that we don't understand why it's happening the way it is. And this hurts. But keep talking to God. Realize that you're in good company because a lot of God's people have been right where you are.
Yeah.
And don't beat yourself up for it. Just stay strong and stay faithful.
And who wants you to believe these lies? He
Exactly.
wants you to believe these lies, and he wants you to feel isolated and separated from other Christians. So don't, choose who you're going to believe, choose who you're
Yeah.
going to serve. And I love you brought up the Hebrews 11, the Hall of Fame of Faith. And I had done a lesson several years ago where I looked at that more closely, and it made me think. I had this visual of seeing as we're surrounded by this great cloud of witnesses. And when you look at those witnesses, a lot of them are the people we've talked about who
Hmm.
had struggled and had difficult, terrible things happen to them, and they kept going and they kept trusting God. Paul, forget what lies behind what was behind me and press forward to them. I'm terrible at this, but forget about that and keep looking ahead and keep pressing on toward the goal, which is heaven. But I think about all those witnesses, and we're running this race, and you just think about this eternally long track, and there's these people, and they're not just in the stands cheering for you, these heroes of faith. They're down there on the track with you, and when you fall down, they're down there with you, eye to eye, telling you, "You can get up and you can keep going." I've been there. I've done some of the same dumb things. I've had some of the same questions and doubts, but I'm gonna help you up. And I just love the thought of those witnesses that are willing to get down on that track with us and help us to keep going, and telling us that they've been there, they've done that, and I have faith in you, and God will help you to keep going. So don't believe that lie. Keep going.
Yeah. And it's much easier to believe it if you're isolating yourself.
Mhm.
Struggles seem heavier and, we're disappointed in ourselves or whatever it might be when we're withdrawing
Yeah,
from people.
yeah.
And I think that might be for some personalities a default reaction. And I know that's mine.
Me too.
But I think our emotions get skewed, our feelings get skewed, and God gave us not just that, great cloud of witnesses, but his family right here and now to lift us up in those struggles. Think about those individuals that we just talked about in the word that struggled and cried out to God. They were by themselves.
Mhm.
And things just are just harder that way. And, maybe there are times when you need to go off and be by yourself so that you can pray
Yeah.
and think things through, cry if you need to, or whatever it is, but then get right back out there among God's people and pray with them, share with them, love on them, and let them. That's one of the resources that God has given us to help us when we do struggle is his people. And so I think, you know, I know you're trying to cover the angle of everybody's going to struggle, regardless of where you are in your Christian walk. Even if you're at that mature faith
Yeah.
level, you're still going to struggle. I know that's the whole point. But when we do, I just think Satan's the one that wants us to pull away from everybody else and everything good and deal with it by ourselves, isolate ourselves, withdraw. I don't need to be around God's people right now. I need to get my act together. Oh, that is so dangerous. And it just makes it that much harder.
Yeah. That is such a good point, and I think it's almost teaches us that we almost need to do the opposite of what we feel like doing.
Hmm. Oh,
When
yeah, that's
you're
good.
someone like you and I, where and I heard a couple weeks ago, I heard somebody say that sometimes isolation and rest start to look the same,
Hmm.
and that, ooh, we can call it, "I just need to rest," but what it is isolation. I just wanna isolate myself,
Mhm.
and we have to be on guard for that because I do that. I withdraw,
Mhm.
and it's just so not helpful. Like you said, God gives us people to help us overcome these struggles and trials. And ironically, my next one is after what you just said, this one is I have to fix everything before God can use me.
Mm.
And, you know, that's so that's so wrong and it's impossible. It's just impossible because we're not ever going to fix everything before God can use us. And this is different. This is a little bit different than saying I need to uh, get rid of sin before I can be useful to God. We're never going to get rid of all of the sin because we're human and we're going to continue sin. But I wanted us to focus on fix my life. I want to fix my life and get everything in order, get everything straight, and then God can use me. But God works through our weakness so many times, doesn't He? And
Mhm.
what? How many times can you look back on people who helped you because of the weakness that they expressed or that they displayed or not not to get attention, but because you knew they were being honest and they were being real and that helps us get through. But I was thinking, how many times do we think, okay, I just need to fix this financial problem and then I can focus on serving God? Or okay, I just need to get rid of this fear and anxiety that's so crippling and then God can use me. Or maybe it's I've got to get my life in order so that I can be more of an authority. And then I can teach people about how to live a good Christian life. Maybe we might think, I need to learn the whole Bible. I need to know the Bible better before I can teach a children's Bible class or an adult Bible class. I need to know the whole Bible
Yeah.
before I can do that. Maybe we think to ourselves, when I get my emotions under control, then God can use me. Like, when is that going to happen? And then how about this one? When I get my house clean and organized, then I can have people over and serve God in that way.
Mhm.
And so I was thinking, what if all those Bible people that we just talked about, what if they said, once I get all these things under control, then I'm going to go do what God wants me to do? If David said, once Saul is finished chasing me, then I will serve God. Or what if Paul, when he was still Saul, man, you think about where he was at the beginning when, he was stopped on the road to Damascus. And what if he had to go back to every single person he ever hurt And I bet he wanted to, but what if he had to fix everything? Say, "Wait a minute. Okay, hold on, God. Give me 5 years to go fix all of these things that I
Let me
messed up."
repair my reputation first.
Yes. But what if what if we were disqualified until all of our life's problems were worked out?
Mm.
It's not ever gonna happen. No one is gonna be able to do that. So, it seems like thinking about the pattern that God uses, it's not that he takes someone, perfects them, and then uses them. It seems like God calls them, God shapes them while he's using them, and those things are happening simultaneously.
Mhm.
Because I think that the struggles and the things that we're going through help to perfect us. And I use perfect in the complete sense, not because we're not ever going to be perfect. So, um, I was trying to think, and maybe you can think of some reasons. What's behind this? What is it that makes us feel like we have to fix everything before we can
Control,
be useful to God? Control.
control. I mean, when I was thinking, I was, why do we do that? Why do we think, when you mentioned in one of your earlier points about the seasons, different seasons that we have, and you were like, am I ever going to even make it out of this season alive? But things are never perfectly ideal, perfectly lined up. And so, but when my life settles down, when my kids are bigger, when my finances are better, when my, it's like we have to have this controlled environment with which to work.
Mhm.
And when I can control all the variables and place them and have them the way I want them to be, then God can use me. When all the circumstances are ideal for me,
For me,
then I'll let God use me, but is life ever going to be that way? Is life ever going to be ideal with all the perfectly controlled variables? No,
yeah.
no. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. I mean, you just read through scripture just a little bit and you understand that. Control, yeah, that's the first one that popped into your mind. The first one that popped into my mind was like fear of being exposed.
Mm,
So maybe that exposes what drives me to want to have things settled or fixed before I do this. I might be afraid that I'm going to be exposed as not perfect, or I'm going to be seen as a hypocrite, or maybe I'm afraid of trying and failing and people seeing me fail. So
mm,
I think there's lots of different reasons behind why we think we've got to get everything fixed. So I think that one of the solutions to that is to shift our thinking and shift it from thinking, how can I fix this part or perfect this part of my life? And instead, we wake up that morning and say, how can I be faithful to God today? And then take those little small things that come along, whether it's just encouraging someone in a text,
mhm,
doing one small thing that helps us to do the next small thing and the next small thing, because that's really what God wants us to do. He's
mm,
not, not everyone is going to have this grand impact on millions of lives. Some people do, but you think about the Rogers and Joyce Johnsons of the world, and maybe not a whole lot of people know them outside of Bowling Green, Kentucky, although a lot more people do because you
mhm,
talk about them. But they do the little things that
mm,
encourage the people within your congregation. Maybe it's just showing up, and like, we're talking about isolation. It's just doing that little thing of showing up, which feels like a big thing, and that helps us to shift our focus from fixing everything in our life to serving God. Not
mhm,
fixing me, but serving God, and it's just a continual shift in our focus. Instead of thinking, "Am I qualified to do this?" Can we instead think to ourselves, "Am I growing? Have I grown some from yesterday?" And I think we can say every day, if we spend some time in the Word every day, spend some time in prayer, spend some time serving, then we're gonna grow every day. We're gonna grow. And if we shift ourselves from thinking, "Oh, am I qualified to do whatever it is that I wish I could do?" Instead, think to ourselves, "Am I growing?" So I think that we can be healing from some of these faulty thoughts, and we can be helpful at the same time. In fact, I
mm.
think we have to be, because like you said, we're not ever gonna reach that spoiler alert where life is not ever going to be uh, everything that we want it to be. But if
Mhm.
we're still busy serving the Lord, that's what He expects from us. That's what He wants. And, and when we do that, that's a reward in itself. Just knowing that we have done something for God is going to help us overcome that temptation to want to fix everything before we can serve God.
It's like we're erecting our own barriers, with those reasons or excuses, if you will, and really the only barrier to God using us is our own unwillingness.
Yeah.
But making ourselves available, having a willing heart, God makes up the difference with whatever we see or feel is lacking. And isn't that biblical? I mean, that's part of the illustration of that miracle of Jesus with the 5 loaves and 2 fish. That was all they had. That's not even going to be enough. We can't feed all these people. And then look what he did with it.
Right.
And he did the same thing in the Old Testament. I always forget if it was Elijah or Elisha, but large group of people, just a few cakes of bread, and the prophet says, "This is enough for everybody, and there will be leftovers." And that's exactly what happened because that's what God does. He sees the willingness, and yes, there's lack. Yes, it's not perfect. Yes, it's not just right, but that's okay because He'll make it exactly what it needs to be. And He's the one going to work through us. I think I mentioned on here before, several years ago, I made a couple of charts, and one was called God Uses a Weak Man, and the other one was called God Uses a Growing Man. And the weak man was Samson, who, I just broke down here was everything that he did, and here's how God used it. And Samson really never did get his act together.
Mhm.
He was just a wreck.
Yes.
Yeah, he always struggled, but God still used him. God was still working through him. And then the other one was Peter, and all the different ways that Peter needed to be reprimanded, drew the wrong conclusions, said the wrong thing, did the wrong thing, and but he continued to grow. God was using him when he was still struggling. Peter continued to grow. God kept on using him. So, no matter where we find ourselves, if we have a willingness, we're trying to walk in the light, we're doing the very best that we can. Everything is not ideal. And I feel like this should be better. I should be better. I should have grown more in this area. I should know whatever it is, fill in the blank.
Yeah.
God is able, and all He's looking for is a little bit of humility and a willing heart.
Yeah. And recognizing that it's His power, not ours. And
Mhm.
there's so many examples of that to it's going this might of God's might. 2 Corinthians 12:9, this was Paul talking about his thorn in the flesh. God said to him, "My grace is sufficient to you, for my power is perfected, or it comes to completion in weakness." So that ought to be enough right there to know that God uses our weakness and to be satisfied with whatever answer we get from him as long as we're doing those little things that God asks of us to do, serve, have a relationship with Him. I mean, all kinds of little things, but we don't have to serve in a big grand way. We don't have to fix everything before we can be useful to God.
Mhm.
Then the last one, and we'll do this quickly because of course we running out of time. The last one is my family's spiritual health depends entirely on me. And I think this is something that we can struggle with as women who want so much for our families to be faithful to God. And I think when I read that, my family's spiritual health depends entirely on me. It feels like a burden, and it sounds like boasting, and it has the effect of defeating us at the same time. And I think this is something that I can so imagine Satan whispering in my ear because he wants it to be a burden. He wants me to not have that humility and trust in God, and he wants to defeat me. So my family's spiritual health depends entirely on me. We can't say that we don't have an impact on our family's spiritual health because we do. There's no doubt that we have a huge impact on our family's spiritual health. So that's serious and it's a challenge. And you think about, it's just a conversation you and I had recently about the weight of our words as mothers has a huge impact, not just when they're little, but when they're older. And we have to think about the impact of those words. So think seriously about how our family spiritual health does is impacted by us, but it's not entirely on us. Think about what God expects of us. God expects us to nurture. You know, he gave that instruction to fathers to not provoke your children, but to bring them up in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. When I looked at the biblical definition of nurture, it's to provide guidance for responsible living, to correct and instruct. But then when I looked at kind of the way we use the word nurture, think about nurturing a plant. What do you do to nurture a plant? You can answer that because you know more about that than I do.
Yeah, well, you're present.
It's all on you.
Yeah, soil, water, light.
Yeah. Yeah, you're caring for that plant and you're feeding it and watering it and protecting it from other bugs and things like that. You're cultivating, you're pruning it. So in that sense, we're feeding our children the word of God and our husband too, because whoever's in our family, we're wanting to influence them with the word of God. We pray with them. We try to protect them from those harmful outside influences and we try to model genuine faith. And I think that we allow questions to be asked. So there's ways that we impact our family spiritual health. But the real fact of the matter is that we cannot control our family's actions. And I've thought about this so many times with families, parents that beat themselves up because their children have fallen by the wayside. And I think to myself, even I, I have the perfect heavenly Father. I make some very serious errors in judgment. I sin, and it's not because of him, it's because of me. But that's a hard pill to swallow as a parent to not take all of that blame or all of that burden upon ourselves when our children make bad mistakes. So it's not completely our responsibility when our family goes astray, and that's a hard that's a hard one. But I think
Mhm.
it's one that we probably a lot of us uh, have a hard time not believing that lie.
Yeah, and I think that's, the struggle of the grown children season, when they're in our home, God has put them in our care, we're trying our best to influence them in all the ways, and once you get on the other side of that and they're adults, they're making their own choices, of course, we can look back and see, "I didn't do things perfectly."
Mhm.
If I had the wisdom then that I have now, I probably would have done this or not done that or, whatever it is. You can look back and see, I wish I would have done that differently. I wish I could have done that better. I wish. And I'm just always so thankful through all of that that God loves them even more than we do, and fills in the gaps again, makes up for that lack. But I think it's that season of when they're away and you see them making choices that are concerning.
Mhm.
Maybe they haven't gone wayward, but they're saying things that make you worry about their heart.
Yeah.
Are they struggling with doubt? Are they questioning their own faith? Or you see them making choices that aren't going to draw them closer to God. You see them as choices that will probably pull them away
Mhm.
from God and his family. And I think in those kinds of scenarios, when you no longer have that direct, this is what you're going to do and this is what you're not going to
Right.
do, you start questioning all the parenting choices you ever made. Where did we go wrong? How did this happen? And it's just real easy to do. It's just real easy to do. And I'm sure you're going to touch on the proverb about or did you already mention that one? Bring
I
up a child.
that no, but that's yeah, train up a child in the way he should
Train up a
go.
child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. That's the one that parents just beat themselves on the head with. Obviously, I did something wrong because they've departed, and it's so important to understand that the idea is you lay the proper foundation, and it will be harder for them to fall away. They're gonna have to fall away in spite of the fact
Yeah.
that you did all that loving training, diligent teaching, and, it'll be way, way easier for them to turn away from God if you never do that.
Right.
But but and we get it. We totally understand your children are always your heart.
Mhm.
even when they're grown, and your heart's just walking around outside your body.
Yep.
And you do feel that burden of responsibility for their spiritual well-being for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
You just can't help it.
Yeah. That's a spoiler alert right there when you've got little kids. I remember thinking, "Man, if I can just make it till they're 18." And then I realized that it's even harder. I mean, it's exponentially harder because it's like, okay, your influence isn't over, but it's
Mhm.
greatly, diminished isn't even the right word that I wanna use, but you just don't have as much time with them, but yeah, it's it's a hard pill to swallow, and yet we have to accept the fact that our families, our children, our husbands are gonna make decisions that contradict or go against the things that we wanted them to learn or to know, but that's not our fault.
Mhm.
And, I've seen a lot of times I've seen parents who are embarrassed about it, and we have to be careful not to be more worried about our reputation than we are about their soul. That it's not about us; it's about them and their soul and God, how their relationship is with God. So, just going through that one quickly, that's a hard one, and there's so many other lies that we can believe that we just don't have time to talk about, but maybe we can, bring them up in the group next week and during the break. So, I didn't look to see when our next episode would air after this, but it'll be sometime in July.
Mhm.
So, we're gonna take a break, and we hope that everyone will enjoy their little break. If you miss us so much that you just can't stand to have a week without us, there are old episodes as if, right? Old episodes you can go back and catch up on maybe. But that's it for today. Lies that we believe. Don't believe the devil's lies. Just believe God. And then there's the answer right there.
Yeah, fill your heart with truth so you'll be less inclined to believe the lies.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Well, it's good discussion. Thank you for your input. Thanks for joining us. Check out our YouTube page, our channel. Look at our Looking Up Facebook group. Be part of our little sit around the table, have a cup of coffee or not a Diet Dr. Pepper. Stay away from Diet Dr. Pepper. Anyway, well, Kathy, thanks for everything. Thanks for season 7. And
Yeah.
until season 8,
Keep looking up.
keep
I'm
looking
gonna
up.
miss you.
Yeah, me too. I'll see you later. Love you. Talk to you later.
Love you.